financial literacy, and the human condition. Welcome to Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam.
Hi, it's Francis. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for watching this video. If you're catching us on YouTube, please help us help others by clicking like, subscribe, and all notifications so you don't miss any videos. And check back for the next video. I think you're going to love it. Thanks again. For more information, you can visit us at hugyourmoney.com.
Welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam. Hi.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
I'm good because we're doing questions this week, and it's not all about me, so that makes me feel a little bit better.
Have you recovered from the hot seat interview last week?
I did, and I've got to say that I love it. I just was hoping that other people were interested, but I do agree with you that so many people have to move, and there's so many hidden costs that you forget about. So
Yes.
I think it was a good topic for financial fitness for sure.
It was a good topic, and as it happens with guests, you were a guest last week. As it happens, people always say something that maybe I didn't think of, or I never heard anybody say before, and I won't say what it was. So people should go and look up the show on YouTube or find it on the archives at WHMP. But you gave one specific tip that I had never heard that I loved. And
Oh,
I've told
good.
everybody about it. So yeah, but I won't say what
Okay.
it was. Somebody will have to go hear the show to find out. But it had to do with saving a lot of money and living in a great area.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
was really cool.
I know what
Okay.
you're talking about.
So
All right, questions today. And I've got to tell you that some of these are a little complicated. So I'm really just throwing you to the wolves this week, but I know
great.
that you'll be
I
fine.
love that. I
All right,
love
do you want
that.
to just get started?
Yeah, we should tell people though, I don't know what these questions are. So it's like a little game show. I've been clandestined in my office and Jess is collecting questions. And
Yes.
so fire away.
Okay. And also, just before we get into them, I do want to let people know that if they want to send a question in, we'll get them answered and you'll answer them on the air, not knowing. And if we do use your question on the air, you'll get a copy of the book, which is right behind you.
Oh, Retire Debt and Retire Well.
I never have to worry about forgetting the title because I can always see it right there, which I love.
Well, that's good.
So send your questions into info@hugyourmoney.com, or you can send them here to me at jtyler@whmp.com. We're starting off with Stilco, and this is the name that they sent in, Stilco, Stilcho. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but it's a disgruntled employee in their 30s. They're describing themselves as a disgruntled employee. Stuck
Okay.
in a meaningless dead-end career, invested $40,000 in the stock market, more than doubling their initial investment by putting almost everything into a single stock. Stilco says he got lucky and achieved success in the market by not listening to his financial advisor who told him to diversify. Now he isn't sure how best to rebalance the portfolio without getting massacred in taxes. He has $10,000 in his 401k. That's the first part of the question. Then he's got a couple other parts to it if we get through this. It's
Okay.
complicated.
So does he say whether the stock market investment was an IRA or not?
I believe it was in AI. It was in an AI stock.
Right, but he doesn't say whether it's qualified or non-qualified funds. Like he doesn't say it was within my IRA. I took money out of a CD IRA and I
No,
put it in
he
stock. He
doesn't
doesn't
say that.
say. So I have to assume that it's because of his tax question. I have to assume that it's non-qualified, meaning it's not within an IRA or a 401k. And that's why he's worried about getting hammered on taxes if he reallocates. So you know what I'm going to say. I'm not an accountant, right?
Yep.
And that's my disclaimer. But I do want to address a couple of things he said. First of all, I love that he knows he got lucky with one stock, right? He
Right.
got lucky. It could have been the opposite effect. And instead of doubling his money, he could have halved it or lost even more than that. I'm not sure that he did well by ignoring his financial advisor who said diversify, because we don't know what the diversification would have yielded. So that he might have done better by diversifying, he might have done worse. We don't know because we don't have
Right.
that information. How best to balance that out without, I'm sorry if you hear that, do you hear that, printer?
A little
My-
bit, but that's fine. It's people sending you stuff, and maybe they're sending questions in right now.
It's busy cleaning itself, if you can imagine, because it's been used a lot today. Okay. Anyway, as to how to rebalance that the best way possible, that is a question for a financial advisor who probably, Stilco won't like this, but they'll probably say, you're not diversified, you're in one stock, and he'll have to kind of suck it up and say, yeah, I know, but I did really well. So there's two pieces of advice here. One is, yes, talk to an advisor who will help you rebalance that portfolio, talk to you about the tax ramifications, which we would all do. Any one of us would do that. Hopefully involve your accountant if it's necessary, but it should be within your comfort zone. Now, this person obviously has a fairly high risk tolerance. At least they did when they put 40,000 into one stock.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
so it might be that they can rebalance still within high risk things, have several different kinds of stocks or several different kinds of equities or mutual funds or bonds or whatever might work for them, but within their risk tolerance. So they shouldn't listen to a cookie cutter thing like, hey, by the way, you're in your 30s, and so we're going to do this, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
you are not just somebody in your 30s, you are you. All right. All of that being said, so how to best rebalance that
I
is,
haven't even gotten to the part 2 yet, Frances. We've got a part 2.
well, it's a subjective thing,
Yeah.
but as I said, you should not listen to a cookie cutter thing. However, one thing I do like is that they took the bull by the horns and said, I like this stock, I'm going to put money into it. So I
Mhm.
would say this is a person who can tolerate uh, participating in their own rebalancing, right? They could say, but I like these stocks. What are you going to put with it to counterbalance my maybe over aggressive behavior?
Right.
Driven by my main point here, the fact that he's a disgruntled employee in his 30s, and that might be driving him to make erratic decisions about getting rich quickly. I got to get out of this
Yes.
job. Which stock will get me there? So I want you to get rich slowly, not at a snail's pace, but I want you to have some diversification and rebalance it. What could it include? The best way to rebalance it, as I said, is subjective. Could it include? It could include things like stocks, of course. It could include
Mhm.
things like hard metals, if you're into that, silver, gold, anything like that, if that's the kind of
Yep.
thing you like. It could include bonds. It could include mutual funds, which by their very nature are diversified. It could include, you know, uh, offshore investments if you have the stomach for it. It could
Mhm.
include indexed annuities or annuities even. At that age, they're tougher to find, but you might find something that you like. It could include, CDs. It could include basically anything you want it to. In part, if this is non-qualified money, they're not bound by the IRA guidelines, by the qualified fund guidelines. So the world is their
Okay.
oyster, basically. But I do I do want them to seek the help of an accountant regarding the taxation, whether they're going to be short-term gains, long-term gains, capital gains, whatever the tax term is that he's got to look at within this environment. He needs to know before he pulls the trigger so he doesn't get stuck with a tax bill at the end of the year. Whew,
Mhm.
what's part
I
two?
know. This is okay. So I
Love
think you
this.
answered some of part 2, but Stilco says that he believes that AI and quantum computing will transform the US and global economy. So with that in mind, how should he diversify his investments? What percentage should stay in the NASDAQ and or versus the Dow Jones? Also, what should he do with his investments if he doesn't own property and doesn't know if he wants to live and retire in the US in the long run due to the emergence of political instability likely to emerge after November 5th? Wow, that's a mouthful.
This guy's a thinker. I love that.
Mhm.
But I can't answer that on the air. It's way too complex, and I don't know anything else about his situation. So, as I often do, I'm going to encourage him to call me. I
Yeah.
do a free consultation. It won't cost him anything. I'd
Mhm.
love to have this conversation with him because he's got a lot of irons in the fire here. And he's clearly really trying to get a handle on this. This is the
Mhm.
kind of stuff most people don't want to talk about. They just want to ignore it and put money in the 401k and hope it does well. So bravo, Stilco, for doing your homework and thinking about this stuff. But I think you could make a great part of a team, but you need a good, strong advisor who's willing to hear your ideas, not necessarily argue with you, but hold the mirror up and give you the kind of guidance you need so you can make these decisions because he clearly is a person who wants to be in control of this portfolio. He just needs the right direction to do it.
Right. So, all right, definitely give a call. Let me get your number here. I'm going to get it at the end again, but just I think Stillco definitely needs you.
Sure. It's 413-773-3333.
I've got to say too, congratulations, Tim, for getting all that money in one stock, but it's almost would make you less cautious because you're thinking, oh, this is so easy. And then
Yeah,
you could still be aggressive. But yeah, you
I
definitely have
think
to be
he
careful with
knows.
that.
I
All
think he
right.
knows he got lucky. Yeah.
Hopefully, this one's a little less complicated. Ronnie from Greenfield, he's concerned about the U.S. government defaulting on its debt obligations. He thinks the government spent too much on COVID, foreign wars, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. He's nearing retirement, owns an apartment, but is worried that the U.S. government may experience a financial crisis in the next 5 to 10 years. Is he wrong? Does it make sense to invest in gold and silver, which you had mentioned? What bonds or stocks, if any, should he invest in to protect his investments?
Wow.
These
Again,
are real
somebody,
complicated today. Yeah,
I
they're
love these. These are really good questions. These are great. They're all great questions. Well, first of all, let me get my crystal ball out and tell you that is the U.S. economy going to suffer a crisis? Oh, probably. We suffer crisis all the time, and we seem to get out of it by the skin of our teeth.
Mhm.
How bad is it going to be or not going to be? The truth is, we don't know. This is like asking somebody, I use the analogy, what kind of car to buy. You ask 100 people, you get 100 opinions.
Yeah.
If you listen to one news channel, you're going to head for the hills and stash your cash under your mattress. If you listen to another news channel, you're going to think everything's fine and
Mhm.
inflation's just going to go away magically. So should he be concerned? Yeah, I think so. He's retired. He's living in an apartment, doesn't have a mortgage over his head. So
Mhm.
one good thing is he could move if he had to. But I'm
Yep.
sure he's worried about rising costs and the situation with the government in, let's say it again, an election year, right? A
Yeah.
crazy election year. I mean, I try not to get political, but at this point, I don't know. I mean, either of our two possible candidates at this point causes me pause.
Yeah, the
So,
debate was not stellar. We can all agree on that.
yeah, I mean, we still have 4 months before an election. Who knows what will
Yep.
happen? We may see the
Mhm.
opposite happen. We just
Yeah.
don't know. But that's, I think, his concern is we are in an unknown situation. And in an unknown situation, you know, uh, so let me give him a word of caution. Should I buy gold and silver because they're hard metals and I'll be able to trade it, blah, 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 blah,
I
blah,
do hear
right?
this a lot. I've had a couple of people ask me about gold, that it never goes down or whatever, and I'm like, "I'm not the person to ask this. Ask Dr.
So
Francis Ram."
again, I can't give you specific advice because I'm not your advisor and this is general advice, but here's
Mhm.
my general school of thought. As I said, if you listen to one side of the news, you will hear at every possible opportunity, you will hear ads for buy gold, buy silver. It never goes
Yep.
down. This is what to do. Be afraid. This is how to stay safe. The other side, if you flip on the other side of the news, you won't hear those ads at all. They're almost
Mhm.
never on there. So
Yeah.
they're searching for a specific market. And what bothers me about it is not whether gold and silver is a good investment. What bothers me about it is the reason they're searching for that market is because they want to make you afraid and they know they can do it and the money will flow in. Now, here's
Mhm.
my rule of thought. By the
Okay.
time you are hearing it all over the place, it
Mhm.
is too late. The
Yeah, I
reason
think we
you're
talked about
hearing
this before on another show. You've said that.
yeah. Yeah, the reason you're hearing it all over the place is because people have already made gobs of money in it, and now they'd like to sell it to you at a high price. I mean, just think about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy stock high and sell it low. You don't want to buy metals high and sell them low. If you're interested in buying metals, do your homework while it's high
Mhm.
and wait for it to drop and then get into it again. Um, what else can you do? You can put your money in some places there are some guarantees. So you don't have to worry so much about what if the government goes belly up.
Is an annuity one of them? I just like saying annuity.
It could be one of them, depending on how big and fat and healthy the insurance company is, because
Mhm.
we know what happens with too big to fail, right? They
Yeah.
don't go anywhere. But also, I think what this gentleman is worried about is, okay, we have trillions of dollars of debt. What happens if, for instance, China calls our notes? Are we
Mhm.
in trouble? Are we? Yeah, but you know what? We are in a world economy now. If the US is in trouble economically, so is the rest of the world. I hate to be pompous about it, right? We don't drive the entire world's economy, but we
Mhm.
are linked together in a way that we didn't think we were 50, 60 years ago.
Right.
So what can I tell him to do? I could say, first of all, try to get some input from the other side of whatever you're watching that's telling you to buy gold and silver and see what the other side says and educate yourself. And then really look at the prices. Look at the history for yourself. Don't just call one of these places that advertise and go, okay, why is this a good idea? Because I promise you they will have all kinds of reasons it's a good idea.
Right.
And
They want you to buy.
definitely diversify.
Okay.
Think about money in a bank that might be FDIC insured or DIC insured. think about an annuity that might be backed by the strength of a company. Think about some maybe municipal bonds or other kinds of bonds that you might be interested in at his age. Again, not to box him in, but do your
Okay.
homework. Don't act from fear. Please, please,
All
please.
right.
don't act from fear.
Ronnie from Greenfield, great question. We already have to take a break, but first I
Oh.
want to get your phone number.
Go so fast.
I know.
413-773-3333.
You can go to hugyourmoney.com. We will have more with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, coming up with part 2 of Financial Fitness right here on WHMP.
Want a financial landscape you can see over? This is what it feels like to work with a Hug financial coach. Hug Your Money. So unique, it's patented. For more information, visit hugyourmoney.com.
Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram. Hi.
Hi, Jess.
We're
just
throwing
want-
them at you today, man.
Yeah, I love that people are taking the time out of their day to actually write in questions like this. The more questions we get, the happier I am, because yeah, I don't want to talk about the same topics all the time, and I want to talk about things that really pertain to people. So I would open this up to say, even if you don't have a specific question, if you have a topic that you think you'd like to hear more about, please write in about it, because I love those ideas. I want to be here to help you. That's our job, is to help you. And that being said, I hope that anyone listening to my questions doesn't think I'm being wishy-washy or evasive. I have a license on the line. I have to be careful what I'm saying for people when I don't know them, when they're not one of my clients. When somebody is a client, I have a lot more leeway about the things we can talk about, still with some caution about regulations, of course. But I'm
Yeah.
able to point you in a direction of people who are licensed for what you need, or who can help you with what you need, if I'm not the person to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to Alfredo from Amherst.
Oh, I love these
He-
names today.
I know. He wants to know what he should do with his state retirement if he plans to live and retire abroad in Mexico or Costa Rica. He
Ooh.
lives in Amherst, but is currently living abroad with his. Oh, he lived in Amherst, but is currently living abroad with his wife and 2 kids. He has around 15,000 USD in the Mass State Retirement Fund. Should he roll that into a Roth IRA, a 401k? What are the different tax implications if he lives abroad?
I love this question.
Okay.
So first of all, I would love to speak to him and find out what the tax laws are wherever he is living. I'm
Okay.
recalling many, many years ago, I almost bought some land in Costa Rica, and one of the draws for me was that it had great expatriate tax laws. In other words, I could earn as much money as I wanted, as long as I did it through the internet or whatever, as long as I didn't earn it in Costa Rica, and pay no tax on it in Costa Rica. This was years ago, so I don't know if the laws have changed.
Okay.
And they would actually pay to move my stuff to Costa Rica so that I would live there.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you want to live in another country, you might start by finding out what happens to your income. Can you, what happens to your Social Security, for instance, or your your state taxable retirement, excuse me, if you're in this other country. Armed with that knowledge, then we could make a decision about what to do with your state retirement. So the good news and bad news is it's not a lot of money. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a lot of money to Alfredo, right? But if he has to pay tax on it, it could be relatively well offset, perhaps, again, not an accountant, by doing other things. Should he put it in a Roth IRA, take it out? He'll have to pay tax on this sooner or later. I would love to have a question with him, a conversation with him, to learn more about what his goals are, what he needs to spend money on, when he needs to spend the money. Could he delay this taxation for a future time? Is there a way to get around it using the foreign country? Probably not. They're probably going to say, look, you're going to have to pay tax on it here if you take it out. But that's the kind of information we would need to make that kind of a decision. I think what he's looking for is, do I take a Roth IRA? Do I roll it into a 401k? Do I get an IRA? But those things, to try and clear this up for people, those titles are like an envelope, and you can put whatever qualifies to get into that envelope in there. So for instance, you could have an IRA that has mutual funds in it. You could have an IRA
Mhm.
that has stocks in it. You could have an IRA that's in a CD. You could have an IRA that's an annuity. So the IRA itself is not the type of account, it's just the label on the account, right? It's not the type of
Okay.
investment, it's the
Right.
label of the account. And the
Okay.
same is true with a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is simply you pay the tax on whatever you're putting into it now. You put the money in there, and when it grows and you take it out, you don't pay tax on it later. So
Is
depending on
that
his,
smarter to do it that way because you're going to pay less taxes?
that's what I was going to say, is it depends on his tax bracket.
Okay.
Some people are of the opinion, well, when I'm older, I'll be in a lower tax bracket. That is
Mhm.
not necessarily true. Our tax brackets don't go by age only, they go by income, right?
Mhm.
So that's why a conversation with this gentleman would be really interesting. We've had many people move to Europe, for instance, and I'm sort of familiar with that, but I'm not that familiar with Mexico. So um, that would be fascinating to learn. Can he get some tax benefits there? Or even, is he willing to live in another country that may have the kinds of tax benefits he's looking for and really make his lifestyle good, which is why a lot of people do this. They can't
Yeah.
afford to live here. They move to another country. They're willing to deal with the different government or even happy to have a different government. And, money goes a lot further. So
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Alfredo, that I can't answer, yes, just put it in a 401k or just put it in a Roth IRA, but I would be willing to help you. Certainly, we have clients all over the world. Everything's by Zoom now for us. So I'd be willing to help him if he needs my help. Yeah.
Okay. This question is from Jess in Northampton, which is me.
Hey.
I don't know if this is something you would know or not, but we talk all the time about how I watch House Hunters all the time.
Yes.
And House Hunters International. Why do you have to pay cash for mortgages in other countries?
Yeah.
Just, I guess that's a really general question like these have been, but you can't get a mortgage, or how do people do that? You just have to save enough to be able to spend $100, $200, $300,000?
Often, yes. So one of the reasons that you can't always get a mortgage in another country is because they don't have the same debt system we have.
Mhm.
They believe that if you can't buy it in cash, you can't buy it. And so if you look at the history of mortgages here, not to
Mhm.
get into a long explanation, but they weren't started by banks, they were started by insurance companies.
Mhm.
And they were less than 5 years. And the idea was the insurance companies would give you a little money in the hopes that they actually could foreclose on your house. And then it got
Mhm.
picked up as, hey, wait a minute, this is a way to make money. The banks got involved and we went from 5-year mortgages to 10 to 15 to 20, 30. Now we have 40-year mortgages, right?
I agree. Yeah.
We have it because people want immediate gratification.
Mhm.
Americans are really good at wanting stuff right
And
now.
and usually want something more than they can afford. They want the big expensive house.
Well, and it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've often said, why does a house cost $300,000? And
Mhm.
people will say, well, because the supplies cost that. Why do the supplies cost that? Everything costs what it costs, in part
Right.
because we figured out how to pay for it on time.
Mhm.
Um, I remember I had an interview with a gentleman from a local restaurant at one point, and he bought his first pair of shoes when he was 7 on time payments.
I remember this. This is from Alina's.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I mean, that really drives the whole point home. So when you're in a foreign country and you can't get a mortgage, the way people do it in part is they usually sell property somewhere else and they take the
Mhm.
profit and they buy a property there. But it's just not set up the same way. The debt system is not the same in other countries. I wish that we could learn some things from some other countries. We don't seem
Mhm.
to do that all that well here. Unfortunately, we're not very humble as Americans, I
Mm.
think, in general.
Well, thank you for answering that question for me.
You're welcome.
You have a couple yourself?
I do. One in particular, this one came in last week, and I'm just going to read it. I have several severely delinquent credit cards, and I'm starting to get letters about being taken to court.
Mm.
Is there any way I can avoid going to court? They want me to pay a lot of money up front, and I don't have it. It's from Jackie in Hartford, Connecticut. So yeah, so this is a complex question, but let me try to give you the skinny on this, Jackie. So, yes, you can avoid going to court. You simply don't go. Now, let me tell you what will happen. And again, I'm not an attorney or an accountant, right? I'm going to tell you my experience about what will happen with these kinds of, what she's talking about is a judgment letter. So she owes somebody money and they're saying, look, if you don't pay up, we're going to take you to court and we're going to get a judgment against you. And they
And
probably
are they adding more and more fees onto it too?
Oh,
Usually
yeah,
those.
fees,
Yeah.
you name it, right.
Yeah.
So So this is complicated, but basically she can go to court or she can not go to court. I would recommend that she goes to court, not fearfully. She just goes to court. And
I
when
don't
she,
think she's going to like that answer.
well, it's going to get easier. Once she
Okay.
gets to court, I want her to find the attorney that's on her case before it ever gets in front of the judge and go to the attorney and talk to them.
So
because
she
the-
doesn't have to hire an attorney, just find the attorney that's on the,
She could hire an attorney. I'm certainly not going to recommend she goes without hiring an attorney.
I
But
know,
if
but
she
that's going to
wants
be
to
even
go
more
on
money.
her own, yeah, if she
Yeah.
wants to go on her own, which most people can do,
Mhm.
she'll find the attorney, and I'm going to give her some parameters right here.
Okay.
So if the judge says, yes, you owe this money, I'm going to issue a judgment against you in favor of the creditor, which is likely to happen because she took the money out and signed the papers or whatever. Then the judgment rate is typically 12%. Okay, so that means she's got a 12% interest rate on this debt that she owes, which let's just boil this down to brass tacks. That's 1% a month. So let's say she owes $10,000 by the time all the fees are added up and everything, right? So they're
Mhm.
going to want $100 a month, right? Just to cover the interest, plus something against the principal. So if she can offer, say, $125, $150 or something that's affordable for her, has to be affordable. Don't do this and not be able to pay it because you'll just be back in court again. But if
Mhm.
there's something affordable that will satisfy that, and she can talk to the attorney like a real human before it ever goes in front of the judge, the attorney may well be, have the power to say, okay, we're going to take that. Then the attorney just goes in front of the judge and says, we're going to take that.
Mhm.
She's offered this payment. We cancel the case. We've made an agreement. Here it is. Now, it's got to be affordable. It has to be realistic. The attorney has to be reasonable also. Will that work? Probably. Now, either way, she's probably going to end up with this either may be a payment arrangement or a judgment on her credit report.
Mhm.
Not the end of the world. Okay. So the fear of they want to take me to court, how do I avoid that? Avoiding court is not necessarily what you want to do. You want to be a little brave here and go and speak to somebody in person and see what you can do about it. Now, you asked about fees and things like that. They are piling up. And oftentimes, once these judgment letters go out, you start also getting calls from people who want to settle your debt. We can settle your debt for $6,000 or whatever. Just a
Right.
word of caution about settling debt. Yes, you might do that. It might seem easy to you, might seem like a good idea. First, you have to have the lump sum to pay, which you probably don't have, or you wouldn't be, not able to pay this debt. And secondly, you're going to get that 1099-C at the end of the year for the forgiven debt, and you're going to add that to your income and owe taxes on it. So
Oh.
not all it's cracked up to be. I don't love the idea of settlement. A bankruptcy would be another way for her to possibly avoid court and get rid of a judgment.
Mhm.
But she needs to talk to an attorney about these kinds of things. I've given as much general information as I feel like I can safely give just based on my own experience over the years.
But
Yeah.
not a good idea to bury that letter in a drawer underneath a bunch of other stuff.
It's not, and my heart goes out to her because she's getting several of these letters. So
Yeah.
something big probably happened in Jackie's life. She got a divorce, she lost a job, she was ill, something happened that she didn't share with me. And so now she's not only has those sort of emotional things to deal with, she's got several creditors after her. And your fight or flight thing just says, oh,
Mhm.
I'd rather flight. So now is the time to fight as nicely as you can for yourself and try and get a resolution to that if you can. And if she needs my help, I'll help her. Of course.
All
yeah.
right. Well, unfortunately, we were out of time, but I want to get your phone number for people to call if they've got some questions or want to know any more about these questions. What would that be?
Sure. It's 413-773-3333.
And you can go to hugyourmoney.com as well for more information. Thank you. These are my favorite shows when we get to do questions.
Mine too. Write in with your questions or ideas. We're happy to cover them on the air.
All right. We'll be back next week with Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, right here on WHMP.
Tired of juggling your finances? Your Hug financial coach can help. Hug Your Money. So unique, it's patented. For more information, visit hugyourmoney.com.